It seems that Jackson, Mississippi has been in the news for decades. For some, it's a city in the Deep South that represents a turning point in the civil rights movement, home of James Meredith and Medgar Evers, an awakening point in the American conscience. That was the 60s. Fast forward, and Jackson's wounds have reopened, exposing a complicated past and problems of the present. But there are leaders, Christian leaders, who see this moment as an opportunity, that hope can follow truth. When problems are exposed, healing can begin. Tonight, we'll go to Jackson, Mississippi to hear one of those voices. Our producer, Jeff Coleman, recently traveled to Jackson, Mississippi to meet with some of the leaders confronting the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi. One of those leaders that especially impressed him is Representative Ronnie Crudup, a lifelong resident of Jackson. Ronnie is a husband, a dad, and also the son of a well-known pastor in the city. He's as well an elected member of the Mississippi House of Representatives. But it's what he's been doing outside of politics as a quiet change maker in the city that he loves. That's the reason we've invited him to be on State of Independence tonight. Representative Crudup, welcome to State of Independence.
Thank you for having me.
Am I saying it right? I don't want to mispronounce your name, but
you said it correctly. It's Ronnie Crudup.
Good, very good, very, very good. So tell me, I want to hear a little bit more about your personal story, because obviously, given who your father is, you could have. Many people would have thought that you maybe would go into the ministry, given his great church. But you went into politics instead. Tell me a little bit about you and your journey.
So I'm born and raised here in Jackson, Mississippi. Grew up in North Jackson, where I got my high school education and my college education, and then began to work in South Jackson, where I've been now residing for most of half of my life. And married with three children. Been married now for 18 years, and have a beautiful wife and three lovely kids, two daughters and a son. And I'm just somebody who, my story is like a lot of others. Growing up in the state of Mississippi and Jackson, you actually hope to leave one day, but I decided to stay, not because I felt that I had to stay. It was kind of one of those pushes from God that, hey, listen, you're going to stay right here and make a change where you are. And so I stayed here. I met my wife, and we've been living in the South Jackson community now for about 15 years, and just trying to do the work the best we can. I say a son of a pastor. Like you said, a lot of people have kept saying, hey, listen, you're going to be a pastor like your father. I've worked for the church, but I quickly saw that was not my skill set. My dad, he does a great ministry, great work with people, a lot of weddings and funerals, and but that's not what I want to do. I felt more comfortable working outside of the church than inside of the church. And so I work for New Horizon Ministries, Inc., as my full-time job, which is the nonprofit 501c3 for the church, where we get to concentrate on housing, youth development, childcare, after-school programs, and food pantry, all those things that the community needs within, especially struggling communities like ours.
Yeah. So give us the demographics there. So like, what would be the average income of the people that attend the church, for instance? It's a large church, so I know you've got thousands of members. What would you say is the average income for people that attend the church?
Well, our church is about roughly between 25 and 3,000 people. I would say the average income is probably somewhere about 20 something, maybe 30,000 around that avenue. Jackson is a population itself of 150,000, 60,000 residents, 82% African American, and but a lot of poverty in this community as well. And so we struggle with a lot of things, and but like I said, we just keep working the best we can to try to make a difference.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, you're letting God use you. It's good for people to see also that God can use people outside of having to be the preacher and pastor. Mm-hmm. So your ministry is as important as any other ministry, and God is using you outside of the pulpit
Yes.
to do his work, which is a blessing. But in addition to the work you do for the not-for-profit that the church has, you're also an elected official. So was that something that you had planned for yourself, or did people suggest it to you that you should run for state office, or did you always aspire to be an elected official?
No, not at all. Actually, I hated politics. My father's kind of been involved in politics for a long time, but I saw a lot of the pushback he got growing up. And so I tried my best to stay totally out of it. I felt like it was something that really divided people. And so I've always tried to be a person that brings people together instead of division. And so I tried to stay totally out of it. But a lot of people in my community kept saying, you need to run for this position or run for that position. And so it was actually in 2017, 2016, actually, when I ran, but the election for 2017, I actually ran for mayor of the city of Jackson, not having necessarily a clue of what I was getting into, but I just really felt strongly from the Lord to run for mayor. And I regretted it at first, but as I went through that campaign and I finished the campaign, I met a lot of great people who had said, you know what, I want to help the city and I want to help you regardless if you win or you lose. And so that kind of started my path a little bit more on the political realm. And then in 2019, when this position came open during a special election, I ran for this position and I won 70%.
Wow.
And so that the running for mayor definitely made it a lot easier. So when I ran for this position, my name was sort of out there already. People had kind of began to hear a few of the things that I have done. Because like I said, you said earlier, I kind of work a lot quietly. I don't necessarily call the media and try to do things for public view. I just try to get the work done. It's kind of been my MO. But sometimes that MO is kind of people don't know about what you're doing when you need the information for political aspirations. So, but that's kind of how I've been there. And this is probably the first year, actually, this session where I really kind of started to really appreciate the process. The last 4 years that I was in there from 2019 to this last year, I was still kind of, do I like doing it? Do I want to do this? But this year, I'm like, you know what? I think I feel kind of like this part of it, really trying to serve the public, be to the people of our district, but then also being able to work in the midst of a lot of chaos, a lot of times in the midst of crisis. So I do a lot of house renovations. And a lot of times I take the properties that no one wants and find ways to improve them and make it better. And so I feel like some of those tactics work good in here. A lot of times people try to stay away from certain people or things, but I feel like, call from God to do things and try to renovate. And sometimes that's reconciliation is too, restoring, relationships and what those things look like. And so, I feel like a lot of my skill sets work for this part of my service.
Yeah, I think that the people that elected you see your sincerity and honesty. That seems to be a big part of you, of who you are. And without you trying to promote yourself, it comes across when you talk to people. Even when you're talking now to me, your interest in helping people and not trying to promote yourself comes across loud and clear. I think that's a wonderful characteristic, and it's a very Christian one as well. The not self-promoting. How do I help somebody who's not as well off as me to do better than they're doing? That's the right idea. I want to read you something that you tweeted in the middle of the water crisis that put Jackson, Mississippi in the international headlines.
Okay.
This is what you said. Transparent moment. When Jackson loses water pressure, I usually lose water completely. But I understand my position of leadership and service, so I make phone calls to set up water drives. I know how to get my toilets to flush, and my family understands the process of using the restrooms, but my sewage line backed up yesterday and all my flushing abilities stopped. My mental tank hit an overload, and I almost lost hope. When you talk about the problems of Jackson, this isn't a distance for you, is it? I mean, you and your family are right in it. Whatever people are experiencing in Jackson, you're experiencing. And so you're right in there with them. You're not isolated, and you haven't lost hope.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't lost hope. Now, there are some times that I struggle. I will be transparent. I had a moment yesterday Woke up yesterday and really had I'm always looking at development. I'm always trying to move the needle to make progress. That's my favorite word, is progress. And I was taking some guys to go and see a piece of property yesterday, and I quickly saw that someone stole an air conditioning unit from one of my properties, and I kind of my tank kind of hit a low right then. And it kind of took me a while to kind of get back, because I'm one of those guys that's usually pretty optimistic no matter what's going on. But there are some moments when, it can get the best of you. Jackson is not the easiest place to live. I totally admit that. I have neighbors who are always saying, hey, it's time to move, or they'll call me, hey, I need you to give me some hope because I'm ready to get out of here. Even right now, the city of Jackson, we don't have a garbage contract. Our mayor and our city leaders are fighting right now, disputing over who's going to pick up the trash. So we have not had trash picked up in the city since April 1st. It ended at March the 31st. So there's an uncertainty there of who's going to pick the trash up. Just like, sometimes there's an uncertainty if our water is going to, be dependent upon, or sewer. So, Jackson is not the easiest place to live, but I feel called that someone has to stay here and try to help give hope, to try to bring things back, to be the voice of reason in the midst of a lot of bad situations. As a state legislature, a lot of people look at Jackson sometimes and say, man, you guys don't know how to govern yourselves. There's so much things going on. The crime is bad. This is bad. Well, I said, hey, listen, work with me and let's figure out the best way how to handle it. Let's not continue to push things down our throat, but let's figure out the best ways to handle it. So we got to keep those relationships open to make sure that Jackson citizens, residents have what they need, because we have a lot of senior citizens that's here. We have still a lot of children that's here. And so we can't forget about those people who can't just pick up and leave anytime they want to. People call me all the time and say, Ronnie, why don't you just leave? Why are you continue to fight this fight? It's not going to get any better. I said, well, I can't be like that. I have to keep hope alive. I have to make sure I stay optimistic because people are looking toward me to make those changes. And so I've done in the past. I know we'll continue to do it with God's help, that at some point, Jack's going to see a better day.
Yeah, well, Noah had an ark, and apparently so do you, which is a real blessing. When Jeff Coleman came down to visit, you took him on a tour of this, a late night tour of this humongous building. Jeff showed me pictures of it. It's just so, this is a building that was filled, it was leaking a year ago and filled with old furniture. And now this place is magnificent. It's about to get a brand new floor, as I understand it, courtesy of the Pelicans basketball team, NBA basketball team, which is huge. But tell me the story of the Ark. How did that come into being, and what do you foresee for that wonderful place?
So it became into being. We've had this facility now probably about 5 years. We bought it for very little money, not knowing what we were going to do with it. But
right next to the church. It's right next to the church.
Right next to the church, right behind the church. The church bought it, and we didn't really know what we were going to do with it. But we had a furniture store that came and rented the facility during those years that we just didn't have a clue what we were going to do. But it was last year at the end of the legislative session, the state of Mississippi, we allocated $1.5 billion across the state of Mississippi, and Jackson got almost zero. And that really, really ticked me off. Now, I had made some requests to help get some renovations to some parks, some roads, things like that, money for blight, because there's a lot of blight and things need to be torn down. But all of our requests from a lot of our Jackson delegation, just hit a wall. None of us got anything. So I was very upset. Like I said, it took me about 3 days to really kind of get my thoughts together. But I really felt, God said, hey, what are you going to do with all that anger you got? What are you going to do with all that tension that's kind of built up in you? So I decided, hey, let's go ahead and build something for our youth in our community. I've been doing a lot of residential housing for a long time, but I felt the time was now to do something commercial on the commercial side, because a lot of those houses that we've been renovating for those families, they've said we still don't have anything for our youth in our city. We don't have movie theaters. We don't have skating rinks. We don't have a lot of things that a lot of cities have for their kids. And so I decided, hey, I got some friends who trust me, and I called them. I said, listen, I want to build a sports complex. And every friend that I called said, let's go for it. And so we just started making those phone calls. Had a couple of friends that donated large amounts, and we just made it happen. And we slowly moved the furniture store out of there. A few of my coaches, we had a bunch of guys that brought some physical hands on deck, and we just worked for about 6 months. Actually, even in the middle of a water crisis, while we were doing the cleanup, we actually had another water crisis that happened. So we had to shut down cleanup for about a month or two and started back passing out water. But then right when the water thing kind of came back, we got right back to it and just built this place called the Ark. And so just kind of as we were building it, the name just kind of stuck with me about the Ark. And thinking about it like Noah's Ark, it took a long time to build. And so this thing here is not going to be a short-term thing. But I also just felt like it was a safe place in the middle of kind of chaos. Jackson, like I said, we have crime issues also. And a lot of our kids have been struggling with a lot of those issues. So we wanted to have a safe haven in the midst of all the things going on around in Jackson, that when they come into the Ark, they feel like they're safe. Parents know they're safe. The kids know they're safe, and just to have a good time. And so we have now pretty much almost completed the first half of the building. The building is 110,000 square feet. So we've kind of completed almost now the first 50,000, 60,000 square feet. We're working on now putting a gym in there as far as weight facility, equipment and all those things. And so 3 basketball courts in there right now. We have a beautiful mural that is in there. It's been donated by a guy named Derek Perkins. Derek said, hey, if you buy the paint, I'll paint the mural. And so I have a lot of parents, a lot of people that have been donating their time. The graphic artist donated his time by creating the logo for the Ark. And then also there's a big banner that we put on the wall. The first thing we see is, hey, that says, for with God, all things are possible. Because we want to let the kids know that, hey, with God help, all things are possible, because there's so much lack of hope in our community. Because a lot of kids, be honest, a lot of children, they trying to figure out, how did you all pay for this? Are y'all selling drugs? Or are you doing this? How is all this coming together? Because a lot of people in the community, they say this is a miracle that this would happen on this side of town, because usually these type of things happen in what we consider North Jackson or, some of the outskirts of Jackson. But for this to happen in South Jackson the way it has, it's been nothing but short of a miracle, that people know that, hey, with God, all things are possible. So I have another parent, soon, it was supposed to start this week, that's actually going to paint the building. He's a contractor, he's a painter. He says, you buy the paint, I'm going to paint the building for you. So people have just been steadily giving to us for this process, because they know how much hope this has brought to this city in the midst of all the other things, distractions going around us.
So you got basketball in there and any other sports?
So we have basketball right now. We have boxing. We have some rock climbing going on. A lot of people ask me about putting pickleball in there. I said, I don't know a lot about pickleball just yet, but we're going to get there soon. And we're putting a track inside of there as well. And so these are the things that we're starting with. We actually have volleyball lines too. And so we're going to probably start some volleyball stuff going on as well. So it's sort of it's going to be a multiplex of things. As we get to the second half of the building, we're going to put actually a baseball hitting cage in there. We also have turf. We have turf inside the building now for those folks that want to work out around football and kind of ground balls. So we're kind of just building as we go. The beautiful thing about this, we did not start necessarily the process until like last June. So we've got a lot of this completed within a year. And so I feel pretty strongly by the end of this year, this place is going to look a lot different than what it did early part of last year.
Wow. Well, Ronnie Crudup is Christian. He's also a Democrat, and many of the lawmakers on the other side are Christians. Has that fact made it easier to cooperate and get things done? We'll talk about that.
Learn more about Joe Watkins and the mission of this program at joewatkins.net. And tell Joe what you thought about today's program in the comment box.
My guest is Representative Ronnie Crudup from Jackson, Mississippi. He's been daring people to trust God through some audacious projects like a 110,000 square foot facility for the children of the city. Ronnie, I want to talk politics for just a moment. You're a conservative Christian, a believer, who happens to be a Democrat. There are many conservatives, Christians in the Republican Party in Mississippi. Have you found it harder or easier to get things done because you share a common faith? Or is there more or less civility because there are so many self-identified Christians in power?
Well, yeah, I don't necessarily see it as a thing that I think I can definitely get along with them, pretty much anybody, because of my faith. Because I see myself as a Christian first. And so if I see myself as a Christian first, there are certain things that the Bible teaches me that I have to do. I got to love my brother and be able to talk with my brother. And so I try to find that common ground with anybody that I work with in there to try to get things done. I think we've lost that on the national, basis. A lot of our states that we can't find that common ground anymore. And so that's my take on that. Try to find common ground, no matter who that is. Now, a lot of the leaders, they all say, "Hey, Ronnie, you're a good Christian man. You should be doing this." Someone said, "You should be joining the Republican Party." I said, "No, it's not about the party. It's about, God working through the person, whatever party they are." And so that's my fact on it, that, God can use anybody. In the Bible it says God can use a donkey. So if a God can use talk through a donkey, he can talk through me as well. So.
Yeah, that's you have the right idea, brother. I know that when we get to heaven, God willing, we get to heaven. I know that God is not going to ask us what our political party was.
Exactly.
There's nothing there about that. He's going to just want to know if we loved our neighbor like we loved ourselves. And I love that you're doing that. So here you are. You're this bright young guy in Jackson, Mississippi. You're already an elected state official. You've started the ARC, which is this wonderful center for kids in Jackson who might if were it not for you and this dream that you have, and then the fact that you've worked to put it together, there wouldn't be a place like that for them to come and to play and to be in a safe environment and the like. Do you have any sense of what maybe God has for you next? I mean, after the center is all completed, and do you think God has something else for you to do? I'm guessing that he does, of course, but what do you think that might be?
Yeah, there's a lot. I have I do not struggle with ideas. My wife can tell you I have ideals that come all the time. And so my next thing is, so in the district that I am in, South Jackson and West Jackson, there's no economic development. So there's no jobs. There's not a lot of hope. There's a lot of abandoned buildings. We have old Home Depot building that's available, just all these old grocery stores, Roses, these big box stores that just pretty much is left. And so we're here to sit and look at these. But I feel like God has given me a vision for a lot of these properties. And so we own some more. My plan is to try to put a skating rink in one of them pretty soon, because these are one of the things that we feel like a lot of our kids can operate in. Also, South Jackson used to be about 80 or 85%, white at one point. What I'm saying that is, so a lot of the parks in this area are filled with baseball parks. A lot of baseball fields that now are not being used because a lot of kids in our communities don't play baseball. There's not a lot of coaches that'll teach baseball, but there's a lot of little Pop Warner football teams that are actually practicing and playing on those baseball fields. So I brought it to the city and other leaders that we're going to convert some of these baseball parks into multi-use parks for football, soccer, and the likes of. And so our city just really has not kept up with the times of the diversity and things when people are moving and coming back and changing demographics. And so I want to do that, other swimming opportunities for our youth. And so there's a lot of ideas that I have to try to bring forward to try to make Jackson a better and a safer place. Like I said, I got 3 kids. My kids are 15, 11, and 9. I like them to be able to swim. We have a swimming pool that we've been running now that actually still belongs to the city, but we run it for the city through private funders that we take care of the lifeguards and everything. We teach kids how to swim in our community. So my 3 children have learned how to swim at that pool. So if my children learn how to swim, other kids will learn how to swim too. And so we've had that water aerobics for the family, for the women. And so all of these things that I do is it's for holistic for everyone. And so that's why I feel so much comfortable. It's not necessarily about being in 4 walls, because our community has so many needs. We're a food desert. We don't have grocery stores here. I like to tell people, let me show you kind of how bad it is. I'm not trying to brag on this, but we've lost our McDonald's, we lost our Wendy's, and we lost our Waffle House. Wow. Probably in the last 2 years. I've never heard of a Waffle House shutting down, but our Waffle House in this area shut down. So that kind of gives you an idea of just really how impoverished this area is. So, but I feel called to try to help bring some light in the midst of darkness. So what it says, the light shines best when it's dark. So I feel like this is the time to really help, God's light shine during this time. Beautiful.
Representative Crudup, thank you so much for sharing your work and your heart with us today. May God bless you and your family down there in beautiful city of Jackson.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back with our great producer, Jeff Coleman.
You're watching Joe Watkins' State of Independence on Lighthouse TV. Positively different. Share your comments about today's program in the comment box at joewatkins.org.
And now let's talk to our great producer, Jeff Coleman.
I'm so inspired. Listening to him, see what looks like, it's first of all, it's what's going on in Jackson is one of the biggest stories, long ongoing stories in the country. You don't think about Jackson, Mississippi for a while, and then all of a sudden it's there again. So meeting him for the first time, walking through this facility, we were at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and he opens the door, and then you look up and you see this massive, far as the eye can see, facility. And it's got CrossFit and 3 or 4 basketball courts, and he's got this mural that he's describing, which is wrapping around the room in this big picture of Noah's Ark. And what he's saying, I think, is so critical, which when you're telling people that are living in poverty or don't have reliable water, don't have the trash potentially picked up the next week, and you're telling them to have faith and to trust. Having examples of people who are saying, I'll trust and I'll venture out and try something different is so powerful. And what I hope that this program does, and I hope a lot of people watch it and share it, is give at least a small seed of inspiration for their life, that whatever they're facing, whatever they're doing, trusting God allows you to do what seemingly is impossible.
Yeah, Ronnie hasn't given up, has he?
He sure hasn't.
Yeah.
Sure hasn't.
Yeah, man of faith. Great story, Jeff. Great story. Thanks for.
Yeah, it was an honor to meet him, and I loved listening to your conversation. It was great.
Yeah. What a blessing. Well, Jackson has seen, as the song goes, hard times, and maybe you have too recently. But Ronnie's challenge to persevere and trust God completely is so encouraging, isn't it? If the water is overflowing or the well is dried up, God hasn't abandoned you, has he? Please tell me what you thought of our conversation with a note in the comment box at joewatkins.org. I know I speak for Jeff and the entire production team here at Lighthouse TV in saying how good it is to hear from viewers just like you. From America's first capital, Philadelphia, I'm Joe Watkins. For Jeff Coleman and the great team at Lighthouse, thanks so much for watching. God willing, I'll see you next week. Ronnie's Ark.
Yeah, it's really...
There's Noah's Ark, and now there's Ronnie's Ark.
It is a total refuge in the city that needs safe places for children, but also for parents who... Joe Watkins' State of Independence is a production of Lighthouse TV, positively different. Made possible in part because of the support of viewers like you.